Hello everyone, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. So today I have your weekly dose of ghost stories and makeup for you. I have nothing else to say other than I hope you all had a good weekend, and I know it's Tuesday for some of you, so I guess happy Tuesday, happy Monday. So if this is your first time joining me here on a Monday, this is where I take a break from makeup, well, kind of, for a little while, and I read my subscribers' ghost stories. You can send yours right here, ghost stories, weird experiences. Maybe you time traveled. Let me know, send them right here and I will read them out here on a Monday. And I always like to give credit to Bailey Sarian. This series was very much inspired by her Murder Mystery Makeup Mondays. I'll go ahead and leave a link to her channel below, although I'm very sure you know who she is already. All right, so today our inspiration is I'm the what's the snowy version of Bigfoot? Snow Bigfoot. Because I know it's called different things. So the Yeti or the Abominable Snowman. So I'm a relative of. I'm not that, and I've always been like I always feel like I've been like overshadowed by the main Yeti. So I'm like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm going to make myself seem kind of human. I'm going to go into the real world and I'm going to just try and live a life and just be me. But because humans are just genuinely assholes, as soon as I stepped out from that mountain and they saw me, they captured me and killed me for research. So that is the inspiration for today's death. It's not funny. That's not funny. So I know everyone wants me to leave the products I use below, which I will. I'll try and remember. This time I always forget, and then I forget what products I used, so I can't do it later on. But today, just so you know, the main bit, I'll be using the Urban Myth palette from Black Moon Cosmetics, which is this one right here. Looks really cute. I'm thinking of those like bluey purple tones. And then also, which I just received today, in PR, so this was gifted to me, is the Makeup by Mario lip palette. So I'm going to be using this also to create a nice custom lip shade. It's going to be beige. Okay. Everything else I will leave below for you. Let's get into it. Let's do today. Yeah, sure. What? I have my Ghost Stories and Makeup Mondays cup. Oh, it looks like urine. This is just like a normal drink. I'll leave a link to the shop that made this below. They do some amazing options. This was custom made for me and very kindly sent to me. So I'll leave a link below and I have a discount code for them, which I'll also leave in a description box. So how cute is this? All right, our first story today is called Ghost Prank. It says, "Hi Robert, I absolutely love your videos and this series. It makes my day when I get to watch your content. My ghost story is more of a feel-good story, but I guess it's still creepy because obviously it's a ghost story. I was not born yet when my dad experienced this, but I always get the chills when he tells me this story. My dad had 3 brothers growing up. Unfortunately, his older brother Steve passed away from cancer before I was born. When they were children, they often pulled pranks and picked on each other as brothers do. One of their favourite pranks was to set off an old-fashioned alarm clock in the middle of the night and then hide it in each other's rooms. My uncle Steve was never able to get my dad with this prank, because my dad would search his entire room before going to sleep every night. When they were kids, my dad told me that his brother vowed that he would get him with the alarm clock someday. A few days after Steve passed away, my dad said he woke up in the middle of the night and said he thought he could see his brother's spirit sitting at the foot of the bed. My dad, of course, told my mum this the next day, which scared the shit out of her, but he didn't think much of it. I think he assumed he was actually dreaming. The next night, they went to sleep and the stove alarm went off early in the morning while my dad was still sleeping. My mum had already left for work, so my dad assumed she did it as a joke. He called her and said, "Very funny, setting the stove alarm." But my mum says she hadn't done this and didn't know what he was talking about. My dad shrugged it off and didn't think much of it. A few days later, my dad was talking to Steve's widow, Laurie, on the phone, and she mentioned that her stove alarm had gone off randomly the other morning while she was still asleep. They both realised that their alarms had gone off on the same day at the same time. My dad always felt it was Steve's way of saying, "I'm okay and I finally got you." Thank you for taking the time to read this. I hope you enjoyed it and I will be so excited to have it feature on one of your videos. I love that. That is the most hilarious prank. How pissed though would you be? Imagine it being like late at night and you wake up 3 in the morning, the witching hour, and an alarm is going off in your room, and then you have to hunt it down and find it to turn it off. And those old alarms, they weren't like nice like wind chimes, you know, like you get on your phone, were they? They were metal, hitting metal and screaming at you. Somebody mentioned it in one of the videos about my Mickey Mouse mirror and how it was like killing the ghost vibe. But which I totally agree with, by the way, but my silver mirror, look what happens when I bring it on screen. It messes with the lighting. So I have to use something that's not reflective. I don't know why I just randomly brought that up. Thank you so much for your story. I really appreciate it. It's nice to have a message like that from the other side that's a little bit playful and be like, you know, I'm good, I'm okay. So we have an audio submission, and this one is called Ghost Story. Yeah.
Hi, Robert. I hope you're doing well. My name's Natalie, and I love your ghost stories and makeup series. Thank you so much for including my story today. It's more of a spooky than scary story, and I don't really have much of an explanation for it, so maybe you can tell me what you think. In November of 2017, my now fiance's dad passed away from a brain tumor and cancer. I never really got to know him too well, but we seemed to have connected right away, and his dad always told me that we should get married someday, which he never said too easily about other girls that my fiance dated. He was a really handsome man, and my fiance looks just like he did in his youth. They could have been twins. I really miss him terribly. Anyway, a few weeks after the funeral, my fiance and I were asleep, and I woke up in the middle of the night because I sensed something looking at me or sitting over me. Not too spooky, but just a feeling. I opened my eyes, and in the pitch black, I saw what looked like my fiancé sitting up next to me in bed and kind of looking down at me. I asked, "Are you okay?" He didn't respond and just kept staring. I don't know if that me or just into nothing, but he didn't say or move anything at all. Anyway, getting worried, I said, "Babe, what's wrong?" And I went to put my hand on his shoulder. However, my hand didn't stop at his shoulder. I blinked, and all of a sudden my hand fell all the way to my fiance's chest as he was sleeping in the bed. I never saw him move down, but rather he was sitting up in one moment, and then he ended up under the covers the next as I reached out for him. I thought it was really strange, but in that moment, something in my head reassured me, and I thought, oh, it's just Bob. Robert was my fiance's dad's name, and he went by Bob informally. To this day, I'm fully convinced that he was just visiting to watch over his son and spend some time with him, and I happened to wake up while he was looking over him and making sure he was okay. I hope you enjoyed this story, and I hope you have a great week. Happy Monday.
That was so cute. Thank you. I mean, terrifying at the same time. I would be horrified. One, because people sitting up in bed for some reason, it's just really scary to wake up to someone just like, you know, sitting in bed looking at nothing. But then for your hand to go through, almost like, you know, through a ghost. I can imagine how confused you must have been. That does sound pretty terrifying. Here's my question for you all. Would you be scared if you knew for a fact that whatever was visiting you was a relative? I don't know. I still think it'd be a little bit creepy. This, whatever it's called, candlestick, it always looks like it's at an angle, but it's, I mean, no, it's not, I don't know. Thank you so much for that story. That was lovely. Okay, our next story is called The Farmhouse Spirit. It says, "Hi Robert, this story relates to an old farmhouse that my family moved into. This house was several hundreds of years old. But for some reason, our family fell for its charm and all it had to offer. It was 4 floors tall, with a kitchen being in the basement and a living room and bathroom along with my parents' room on the 2nd floor. All of our rooms were on the 3rd floor. Upon moving into the house, of course all of us performed the stereotypical bickering over which room we wanted. Being the 2nd youngest, I got last pick as my mum picked out my brother's room right at the top of the stairs. My bedroom was at the very end of a long hallway, right at the doorway to the 4th and final floor, the attic. We weren't in this house for long before my 2 older sisters vacated. They never actually spoke on why, but both of them left to live with their other biological parents. One had a different mother and one had a different father. Long story. It just left me and my younger brother. I always hated my room at the end of the hallway. I would often hear things. The blinds would open and close on their own, and my bedroom door would never stay shut. I ended up moving into one of my older sister's rooms after they had left. One evening, around 10 p.m, I was going through my old clothing. I had 3 piles of clothing: the keep, the donate, and the garbage pile. There was a pink and white crop top with a zipper that I threw into the garbage pile. I had no more interest in it, and it had a small stain on one of the pockets, so I assumed no one would want it. I turned back to my dresser. I don't want to know what happened when you turn back to your dresser. My legs stayed put. I was simply turning just my body towards the dresser as I had the keep pile in my lap and continued to go through the drawers. When I turned back, the pink and white top was in my lap, even though I knew for a fact that I threw it in the garbage pile. This didn't quite sit well with me, so I buried it in the garbage pile, and when I bagged the clothing, I made sure it was at the bottom. Upon returning home from school the next day, that damn shirt was folded neatly at the edge of my bed. I made my dad burn it. After researching the house a bit more, I learned that the only other people who lived in the home was a couple, both of which died in the home. The wife apparently died a strange death in the house, and the husband later became obsessed with the fact that she was gone. Our neighbours reported seeing him wear his wife's clothing to tend to the animals on the farm. So I came to the conclusion that maybe the husband's spirit lived in our home and took a liking to that shirt. I had a bunch of porcelain dolls my grandmother would buy me each year for the holidays. I always loved them until we moved to this house. After that, I always felt weird about them, as if they were watching me. I finally stored them in the attic to get them off the shelf in my bedroom. Same thing, I left for school, came home, to then place in order on the shelf. While these things seem harmless at the time, and even now, these things scare the ever-loving shit out of me. Eventually, I stopped paying mind to the advances of this spirit. I stopped sleeping in my bedroom, and so did my brother. We were both scared, and we didn't want to fuel the fire, until the spirit became aggressive. My dad never believed in ghosts, until he started seeing the face of a man, oh no, I don't like that, in my bedroom window from the barn. Twice my dad came running into the house asking me about the man in the window. I never knew how to answer him, as I never had a man in my bedroom. The last and final straw was one night I was asleep on the couch around 3 to 3:30 a.m, the witching hour. I heard a noise. The noise was a doorknob on the door that led up to the 3rd floor, spinning in complete circles, even though I knew it couldn't. Once it caught my attention, I was quite literally thrown from the couch and landed on the floor near the love seat that my little brother was asleep on. It took the wind out of me. It honestly felt like I was being choked. My dog was snarling, his hair standing up as he barked towards the doorway. Him going crazy woke my brother, and I could finally breathe again. We ended up having someone come and cleanse the house, and we removed the remaining belongings of a family who lived there before us from the attic. Our landlord had previously asked us just to leave it. Even so, I couldn't live within that home anymore. To this day, I have a scar on my wrist from the amount of rug burn I got that night after being tossed off the couch. Thank you so much for your story. That was scary. What a horrible experience for you. I mean, the landlord being like, yeah, just keep all the dead people's stuff in your house. No, I can understand if they were like, I don't know, maybe relatives of the people who lived there before, but I mean, you know, get storage. I wouldn't feel comfortable with that. If I was renting somewhere, I wouldn't want to keep, you know, the previous tenant's stuff up in, why am I looking at that? Up in the attic, or even in like a different room or cupboard. No way. I'm paying to live here. And I'm a firm believer in spirits being attached to objects, especially. So if someone was like, this person died, never mind, keep all their stuff. Are you kidding me? Okay, as custom, I have Marcus reading us some stories. Marcus, take it away.
Hi Robert, really good news. I've worked out what I want for Christmas, so I will send you a list. This first story is called The Swope Park Figure. I am a new fan and I love your videos. My favourite days are Mondays. This was sent back in March, so they're an old fan now. I live in Austin, Texas, but I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. And in Kansas City is a park called Swope Park, and it's 1,800 acres, so it's huge. It's known for its crime and its rumoured Satanism. I was in my 20s and I had my own apartment, and my brother was a senior in high school, so him and his best friend would hang out at my place on the weekends. Well, one Friday night we were watching movies and eating pizza, and around midnight his friend wanted to go hiking in Swope Park. Not a good idea in any park at night, but never there. Well, my brother's friend talked him into it, even though I offered many reasons why they shouldn't. So since they were determined to go, I decided to go with them and maybe keep them out of trouble. We pile into his friend's car and drive out to the park, and park along the edge of a wooded section of the park. Back then there were no cell phones and we only had one flashlight between us. We hike uphill for about 15 minutes, and then we crossed a small creek, hiked for another 15 minutes, when we came upon this clearing, and in the middle of the clearing we found a large boulder, about 3 foot high with a flat top. All around it we saw candles on the ground that were burnt down. On the boulder was something red, and scattered around it were bones. I don't know what kind of bones, and I'm not sure I want to know. As we looked around we saw a few feet away a black figure, or at least a person in a long black cloak. His friend said run. My brother grabbed my wrist and yanked me forward. We were running in the woods in the dark. My brother in the lead, me in the middle, and his friend trailing behind. My brother was a lot taller than me, and he was lifting branches over his head and they were flying back. I was trying to dodge them. I decided to break free of his grasp and run on my own, and decided to look back if we were still being followed. We were, and it was closing in. I ran face first into a tree, causing me to land on my butt. His friend coming up behind me saw me on the ground, lifted me up by the armpits, shoved me forward, and yelled run. We crossed the creek. His friend looked back and the thing stopped at the creek. We continued all the way to the car. We got in and went back to my place, never to go back again. It was then I realised I had blood on my shirt, a split lip, and a cracked tooth. All 3 of us were very lucky, and I will never forget this experience, and it's been 30 years. I got that story from TripAdvisor actually, it was a 5-star review. Its next story is called Don't I? Hi Robert, new subscriber here, both because of makeups and ghost stories. This one didn't happen to me, but it happened to my best friend when I left uni to transfer. We were accounting students and our uni is next to one of those famous law schools. She had friends there who she'd hang out with. Let's name the friends Jen and Sam, and my friend shall be called Maine. So Maine went to their form hangout. She found out that her friend Jen needed to leave that day. Jen had a friend called Sam, and she left her with Maine to look after her that day. Anyway, Jen left, my friend stayed on their double-decker bed that was facing the balcony. Sam said she needed to pop out and buy something from the drugstore, but she was gone a while, and Maine was on the top bunk nearly dozing off. After a while, someone seemed to have entered the room. Maine, waking up sleepily, and realising it was Jen who'd come back. She saw her enter playing Flappy Bird on her phone and sitting on the lower bunk. She brushed it off and tried to doze off again, but failed, so she went down and hung out with Jen, sitting by the centre table, in front of the lower bunk, telling stories and having fun. Maine's phone rang and decided to go to the balcony for a better reception. She looked at her phone and saw it was Jen. Thinking she might be trolling her, she did answer the phone and went along with it. The conversation went as follows. Jen: "Hey, how are you there? Sorry I had to leave today, it's really urgent." Maine: "It's fine, and who are you kidding? You're here though," proceeds to laugh. Jen: "What are you saying? I'm here at the bus station. I just called to check and apologise, and the bus is about to leave too. I'll see you when I come back, okay?" Maine: "But you're here." Jen: "You're crazy. Bye." That moment, reality dawned on Maine and shivers ran down her spine. She's starting to realise what's going on. For a minute or two maybe, she hesitated to turn around. She can still hear the sound of the game on her phone. Gathering courage, she did turn around and look at what was supposedly Jen, still on the bed. As if realised what had just happened, Jen looked up, having this kind of off smile, and said, "I look exactly like her, don't I?" Maine felt a rush of adrenaline. She hurried out the unit, still being able to close the door behind her, and run to find Sam downstairs. Sam found her pale and panting, shit scared. Maine told her everything that had happened, and they both got too scared to go back. They stayed in another friend's unit for that night. They called for a spiritist or a paranormal expert to dispel what was going on in their unit, finding out it was a doppelganger. We hesitated to go in the room for a while. There is a belief that when you encounter a doppelganger, someone close to you will be sick, and if it was your own, then that's a warning of your death. She later revealed her sister got sick a few days later. Well, as ever, thank you for having me on www.robertmakeup.ghost.stories/.com. I'll see you next week for more haunted paranormal stories.
So that's not my website, so please don't do anything with that. Okay, first story, terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. For a moment, I thought you were going to say that friend who kind of helped you. I thought you were going to be like, and then now we're married. But that is horrible. Horribly haunting. And as for the second story, absolutely no thank you. Oh my God. And then it being like, I look just like her, don't I? That actually sent shivers. I was going to say down my spine, but it was more like down my arms, so that would be lying. All right, so our next story is called Spirit of the Glass. Hi, Robert, you probably might not read this, but if you do, thank you. I'm doing it. I've been a subscriber of yours for a while now, and have been enjoying this series so much. Thank you so much. This is not my story personally, but my mum's. When she was younger, way before she had me, she lived in a small province located in the Philippines, leaving her and her friends with not a lot to do. There was this trend going around of how to communicate with the dead. It's called Spirit of the Glass, and it's built almost like a Ouija board. Since her and her friends were very young and naive, they decided to try it out at their elementary school, specifically in a place where unexplained/weird events has happened. They waited until after school to sneak back around 6 to 7 p.m. Her and her friend group thought that this was the best time to do it with a Filipino superstition in mind. In our culture, we believe that around the time 6 to 7 p.m. is when the portals to other worlds start opening, because it's the perfect balance between light and darkness. Anyway, my mum described the ritual as scary right from the start. She said that in order to communicate with anyone from the other side, you need to read a prayer. Not from the Bible though. Someone has to say something in Latin, specifically. While this is being said, all the members must have their point and middle fingers gently on the bottom of the glass. Basically, instead of a planchette using a Ouija board, they were using an upside down glass. The board looks approximately the same as a Ouija board as well. Afterwards, when the prayer was over, all her friends, including my mum, waited with anticipation to see if anything will happen. Nothing did until they started asking questions and the glass started moving. At first, no one believed it. They all started bickering about how one of them was moving the glass, but then it got quiet and realised that it was moving by itself, while none of their fingers were anywhere near the glass. They were suddenly all interested again and started asking simple questions, such as, who has a crush on who? What will I be when I grow up? Then someone asked something very personal and deep. My mum joined in as well, asking if her dad will die, because at the time he was battling brain cancer. The glass then moved to yes. She asked when, and it moved to the number 9. The glass kept moving until it stopped spelling months. She then started crying. After that, they all asked what or who it was, answering them, wondering if the spirit is someone that is related to them or someone they knew. Stop. The glass moved from D to E to V to an I and to an L. All of them started panicking. Some of them ran, including my mum, but the person who said the prayer stayed to close the session again in Latin. They were all curious if all of that was true or if someone was tricking them, until 9 months later, when my grandpa passed away. That's when my mum promised herself that she will never try to do anything similar ever again. Fast forward to now, she's 40, and every time she tells that story, it never fails to give me goosebumps. It would scare the shit out of me, to say it the least, to be in that situation and be like, oh, we're communicating, having fun, you know, and then suddenly be like, oh, by the way, also I'm the devil. Thank you so much for sending that in. Am I right in thinking the Philippines seems super, super haunted? In general, we get like quite a lot of stories from the Philippines and quite a lot of experiences. I was going to tell you something and now I forgot. No, I forgot. Okay, so just while I stick on my lashes, we have one more audio, and this is called The Shrouded Woman. Ooh, I don't like the sound of that at all. Okay, go.
Hi, Robert. I love your channel. I think your content is exceptional, and I love your ghost stories. I wanted to just share mine about the Shrouded Woman. When I was about 12 years old, my friend had a sleepover for her birthday party. There were probably 6 girls in attendance. And I should mention my friend's house did back up to a cemetery, but she never talked about having paranormal experiences. And honestly, I lived like a block away, so it was no big deal. So it wasn't like we were creeping ourselves out by the fact that she lived next to the cemetery. We had just been hanging out and playing games. And by the time we decided it was time to go to sleep, we all had sleeping bags that we just arranged haphazardly across her living room floor. I couldn't go to sleep right away, so I was just relaxing, but I suddenly had a strange feeling and I opened my eyes. Standing about 2 feet away from me, I could see a figure. Now, the figure was facing towards my left, so I could only see it in profile. It appeared to be like an average-sized woman standing slightly hunched over. She looked like she was just shrouded in drab gray layers. From my perspective, I couldn't see her face because her hair or a scarf hung down, completely covering her face's profile. But what I could see is she held one hand in front of her at about chest level. She was moving her fingers in like a creepy motion, as if like she was petting a cat with her fingertips. But the thing was, her fingers were exceptionally long. I couldn't even see where they ended. They stretched down towards the floor somewhere. And as I was watching her move her fingers in that creepy little motion, I said, "What do you want?" The woman began to turn towards me. But in that moment, my friend turned on the light in the room and I couldn't see the woman anymore. Before I could say anything, my friend said, "I felt somebody touching my head." And as she said this, she put her fingertips to her forehead and moved them in the exact same way I had seen that woman with the creepy long fingers moving her hand. I told my friend I saw a woman with exceedingly long fingers moving them in that same creepy motion. We were totally freaked out that our experiences matched up. Now, my friend was worried that the other girls would get too scared and it would ruin her party. So she asked if I would pretend like we were just pranking the other girls with the story. I agreed, and we didn't experience anything else for the rest of the night. But I still wonder what would have happened if I would have seen the woman's face, or if she would have actually responded to my question when I asked her, "What do you want?" Wishing you good health. Take care.
Thank you so much. That's so creepy. That's so, human figures that are slightly off and slightly not right. And that was absolutely perfect. Thank you so much for sending that in. Very well told. Thank you. That was a time. Great stories this week. Thank you all so much for sending them in. This is my finished. Just trying to be a normal gal. Look. Yeah. Well, thank you all. Like I said, for sending those stories in. You can go ahead and send your stories to this email address. Weird experiences, paranormal, or just creepy. Doesn't even have to be paranormal. Humans are scary too. Have an amazing week ahead. Be safe. Be good people. Be decent people. What else? That's pretty much it. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you being here. Oh, and just for those of you who don't know, myself and my twin brother have made a joint channel. Our first video went up yesterday. You can go ahead and check that out. I'll leave that like as an end screen to this video, and you can go ahead and check out the video. It was so much fun to make, so I hope you all enjoy it. We'll be posting once a week over on that channel also. All right, guys, have an amazing week. See you soon. Bye.